Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to our show, man. We haven't been together to do a show in a while, and we appreciate everybody that's joining us, getting back used to us doing shows. One of the things with the off season is it's never really an off season in the NFL, but we needed it to recharge, get our bodies right, not allowed to listen to outside noise, understanding the draft and putting the draft in perspective. So, great way to come back. Great way to rejoin you guys. What's up, Wayne?
Hey man, we basically a month away, man. We have one preseason game, the Hall of Fame game on Thursday, and full slate coming up starting on Thursday. So it's here, man. The season is here. It's exciting times. The NFL had a great weekend with Hall of Fame weekend. Got 9 new inductees. It was some pretty amazing speeches yesterday. Some really good players going in there, and man, you think about that draft class of 2007. Man, already 2 in, and there's some more that you know going to be in the Hall of Fame out of that draft class. And so that's pretty amazing when you think about Joe Thomas going in yesterday, and DeMarcus Ware. I believe he was in that draft class. He was him or Tiki Rondé Barber, one or the other.
DeMarcus Ware, I think, was 2004.
Five. Yeah, he was
Five
2005. So it was Rondé and it was Joe Thomas. No. I got it. Sorry, y'all. Preseason. It was Darrell Revis and Joe Thomas in the same draft class.
Yeah.
So, pretty interesting. So, hey man, they say hope springs eternal, right? But now we're in the summer, heading into the fall. And
Let me ask you about the Hall of Fame. Let me ask you something
everybody's showing up.
because I know you've been to the Hall of Fame. I know you told me how the experience was. I have mine out of all the Hall of Famer players that wasn't particularly on your team. Even meeting probably the greatest player ever, in the late Jim Brown, rest in peace, Jim Brown. Who is the one player that when you realize that they made it to the Hall of Fame puts a smile on your face?
I got a funny Hall of Fame story from when I went out there in 2015. Man, I met legends, took pictures with legends, but I had an opportunity to take a picture with the greatest defensive player of all time, that being one Lawrence Taylor. He was like, "Yo, come on, man, take a picture with me." I said, "I can't do it. You're the greatest defensive player of all time, but you're a Giant, and I'm a Cowboy fan. So I'll take the picture of you with my brother-in-law, who's a big Giant fan, but I would never live it down if I was caught on social media with me with a picture with LT. So no, I couldn't do it. You know, I respect him. He's the best defensive player I ever seen, and just it was a blessing to be in the presence of greatness and the amount of people that I got to meet. And of course, it was capped off by the late great Jim Brown, as you stated. I've never really been a fanboy in my life, but that day I was like, yo, it was crazy. Like, I didn't even want to go up to Jim Brown. My brother-in-law forced me to do it, and I'm glad that he did. But I like seeing him. In this class, Revis Island, man, just because I saw his whole career. Even though I'm a Cowboy fan, living in New York, being with the Jets, I heard about Revis Island all the time, man, and he was that dude. And think about Aliquippa, Pennsylvania. Think about that mill town, that still town. And you got Mike Dicker, Tony Dorsett, Ty Law, and now Darrell Revis, and they're all in the Pro Football Hall of Fame from that same still town.
It's funny. It's funny because you bringing up Revis and then bringing up the player that he never played for my team, but I always admired him. And he would be one guy I know if I ever had the opportunity to go to Hall of Fame, I would seek him out more than any player. And I don't know what it is, Dwayne. I've always had a liking to Ty Law, and I never knew why. I always just respected. If you ever listen to him talk, conversations, the way he goes about the game, I've always respected him, and I loved how the Jets, when they first drafted Revis, they went and got Ty Law to be his mentor, and knowing they was from the same area, and it's just something about Ty Law. I always wanted him to play for the team we root for, and it's just
Like,
I don't know what it is. I don't know it, and it wasn't like he would have been a big difference and changed, pushed the needle, and made us win something. But it's just
wow.
something about Ty Law, and even like the guys like Walter Jones, certain players, the Willie Rose, certain guys you just always root for that literally, as they say, play with the enemy. You
Well,
know?
you know why I love Ty Law and why I got a big smile on my face
Yeah,
because he's a Wolverine.
yeah.
So I love him for that. You know, um, always love watching the NFL Top 100 and seeing um, one kid that I appreciate, and again, it's on the Giants theme. And to see that Dexter Lawrence made it at 28, hey man, Dexter Lawrence has turned himself into a hell of a football player, man.
You know, it's amazing because Dexter Lawrence, every time I see him, every time I hear about, how much money he got paid and he well deserved it, all I think about is you hanging up the phone on me that day. Because that's what we were discussing and I was discussing. And even though Wink Martindale has turned Dexter Lawrence into a 3-down player, it's still kind of crazy to draft a guy that high as the Giants drafted him. And I
Yeah.
think that one of the things as an organization, the Giants, and they get criticized, and a lot of organizations get criticized based off of wins and losses. But sometimes most of the time, an organization needs to be applauded for player development. And it's amazing how Wink Martindale was able to tap something in Dexter Lawrence and basically has made him up there with the Aaron Donalds and the Chris Jones as far as defensive tackles.
Yeah. So I love the NFL Network. I love how they've been doing training camp live, and you're getting a nice glimpse at all the different training camps. One thing that has stood out to me as we're getting ready to go into this season is the players are bigger, faster, stronger than they've ever been. I want to be careful when I say this. I don't think they're as tough as the players of yesteryear. Meaning, man, they went to two-a-days, like legit two-a-days in yesteryear. And you just don't hear the amount of injuries that seem to be popping up with these guys, man. There have been a lot of injuries in this training camp to stars, man. Jalen Ramsey, Joe Burrow. There was another one I can't think of right now that had a camp scare as well. Just seems to be a lot of soft tissue injuries, calves, knees. And I just wonder if it's the way they go about the business now.
Well, I agree with you 1,000% on that. One of the biggest issues that I have is the overall theme of training camp. And you hear coaches talk as the word ramp up. And at the end of the day, you could bring in all the best trainers in the world. You could have people do studies. But the one thing that you can't do is overextend your body when you're trying to ramp up. These are world-class athletes that most of them really start working out in the off season, mainly mini camps. However, this is game time. This is like now that most teams are going into padded practices. According to the rules, you can have 10 padded practices. I just don't think that's enough.
Yeah.
Because basically what they're doing is playing most practices are what they call hard touch. There's no tackling. And you really see sloppy play and these weird soft tissue injuries. And you don't see good football, Dwayne, and me and you've talked about it. You don't see good football until about week 6, which I think, and I love the players of what they're trying to do for our CTE and understand their bodies. but I think the players need to get back to having those two-a-days. Even the mental reps, even saying, okay, we're gonna have a tough 3 hour practice, and then saying, okay, we're gonna be in the classroom. And with anything that the NFL Network does and all these great shows that we watch, we're able to get a glimpse of what they do at practice. Practice in the NFL is so organized that you like
Organized chaos.
it's organized chaos. And then let's be honest, once a rookie who hasn't went to minicamp, if a rookie gets a sprained ankle anywhere behind, his rookie season basically is done. Like, because he's so far behind with getting in that classroom, learning the offense, and we've seen it over and over where receivers, some players, and some positions get better quicker, but some players, you'd be like, damn, what's going on with him? We ain't heard from, for example, the Dean kid out of Philadelphia. We knew he had the knee situation, but we didn't even see him on the field last year. And then guys are talking about how this year he may have a breakout season, but we didn't hear about him in his rookie year because of coming in with the injuries. We have a player that we care about on our team that came in with the plantar fasciitis, who has a lot of promise if you've seen his skill set, but literally this year could basically be a wash for him because at the end of the day, as they say in the NFL, next man up.
Yeah, it is next man up, and I'm hoping Schoonmaker is, I'm a big Luke Schoonmaker fan. He's from Michigan. Everybody knows I'm a big Michigan fan. So it's interesting, man. Let me ask you this. I want to make sure I ask this the right way because it's a lot that's out there. What camp or going into the season story are you most interested in NFL?
Well, it's funny that you asked me that, right? Because I am amazed. It's two teams that, to me, are the biggest story this year, but they shouldn't be. I am amazed, and I have to bring it up. I am amazed at the lack of attention, the lack of respect that people are giving the Super Bowl champs. I cannot believe that this team, with this quarterback, the amount of AFC Championships games in a row that he's played in, that nobody ever talks about them, the pressure of winning, being a winner, being celebrated. And I think that we're falling into, media-wise, fan-wise, we're falling into the same thing we fell into at New England. That, okay, yeah, Brady started getting attention probably when they won their third championship.
Yep.
But we're so busy with other storylines and other teams and a great quarterback getting traded that we're not focused that this team right here in the middle of America is kicking ass and taking names. Like, right. Literally, they're in the middle of what could possibly be a dynasty if they win a couple more championships, because the attention allows them to focus as a football team, the attention not being on them. And, this is a coach's dream for a guy like Andy Reid who just wants to teach and coach and get better. And it's the ultimate disrespect to the quarterback that, I'll name it, that Dallas and the Jets are getting more publicity than the Chiefs is kind of crazy.
It is, man. And when you think about it, the name that you just put out there, Big Red, man, like, he's not talked enough about as being one of the all-time great coaches in the NFL, man. When you think about how many times he got the Eagles to that NFC Championship game, never got over the hump. Like, went to the Super Bowl one time with them and lost, even though TL had one of the greatest performances. Like, the only MVP from a non-Super Bowl winner is Chuck Howley, who was just inducted into the Hall of Fame this weekend. But if we're being very honest, in that Super Bowl, Terrell Owens should have been the MVP when he was on the Eagles.
With a broken ankle.
He should have been the MVP in that Super Bowl game. So you think about what Andy Reid did in Philadelphia and what he's done in Kansas City, and I just don't think he gets enough credit that he deserves. Um, Hard Knocks, the NFL forced Hard Knocks on the Jets. I understand that Aaron Rodgers is at the Jets and he's taking the same path that Brett Favre took, which is very ironic when you think about it. But if you watch TV from day to day, you would think that the Jets are the favorite to go to the Super Bowl. But the Chiefs still got Patty Mahomes.
Man. Let alone they're not even the favorite to win their division.
Right.
It's the NFL, bro. It's amazing. It always not for long, and the next best thing, the quarter. Everybody, even right now, is people are saying teams are positioning themselves to draft a kid out of USC. One thing I'll say about Coach Reid is that, and I'm not to take away from any other coaches that may be this way, but one thing I like about Coach Reid is that he's been through so much in his personal life with his kids. He's been through so much, and he's never made the story about him. Living in the Northeast and understanding the proximity that we both have to Philadelphia. When he was the coach of Philly, it was never about Coach Reid. It was always about the players. And then to go to another organization and turn that organization around and get them over the top and win. Andy Reid is probably one of the most underappreciated coaches. I particularly love his coaching tree. And one coach in particular, I love the coach Doug Peterson. I love what Doug Peterson has stand for. As crazy as it may be, that I'm a Cowboy fan saying it, that Doug Peterson. I am glad the Eagles got rid of him because I thought he was excellent as a coach, and you're going to see. Most people are going to see what Doug Peterson, the effect that he has on Jacksonville this year, even more. So, I'm intrigued with the stories. I just think that the stories, Dwayne, could be good for a season, but I can't take the week by week storylines. They're like over intoxicating. How bad or good Dak Prescott has been, or what he is. We all know Dak had a bad year as far as turnovers last year, but he didn't lead the league in turnovers. He led the league in interceptions. Josh Allen led the league in turnovers. Josh Allen has spit the bit in the playoffs, but for some reason, Josh Allen don't get as much criticism, and even having not a bad year, but a down year last year. Was Josh Allen a product of Dable? Because Dable leaving.
I think Josh Allen is one of the most talented players in this league. I do. He's been to an AFC Championship game, a classic one at that. And I just think he's one of the top 10 players in this league. So he's going to get a little bit more grace. I get it. Dak missed 5 games and still led the league in interceptions. That was not a good situation. The player I'm most intrigued about this preseason and where he's going to go going forward is Trey Lance. Like, what is really going to happen with this quarterback that the 49ers gave a boatload? They gave up a lot to move up to draft him. And they caught a break with Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant. So he's not costing them a lot of money. They gave up a lot of draft capital for Trey Lance. I want to see if he's really given a chance this offseason or if they're just going to go with Brock Purdy because the run he went on last year. And how can you keep Trey Lance, Brock Purdy, and Sam Darnold all on the roster? So that's the most intriguing story for me. I'm a Cowboy fan. I could pick a Cowboy story, but if I'm looking at it for the whole NFL, I want to see what happens to Trey Lance.
Yeah, and then the I'm intrigued by that story. I'm intrigued because, and not that I don't respect Kyle Shanahan. I think Kyle Shanahan, from a play caller and a play designer perspective, is one of the best. I mean, I saw a game a couple years ago where he just literally made the Rams tap out. I mean, he was literally trapping the probably the greatest defensive tackle ever. Like Aaron Donald didn't stand a chance on this trap, and they kept running the same play over and over. They kept running the same formation over and over to the point where the Rams basically couldn't do nothing against it. So I loved what Kyle has done, but I get a little upset because with the praise, where's the criticism? Where's the criticism from this organization? I think San Francisco, what most people don't realize is they haven't won since 1996. Like, nobody says anything about the 49ers. Yeah, they've been in two Super Bowls recently, but they've had a lot of talent. They had a lot of talent. They paid Hargraves a lot of money for his age to come there and help. They have the best middle linebacker in football. They're about to pay Bosa a bunch of money. And like you said, they gave up a lot of assets for Trey Lance. And at the end of the day, if they have to get rid of him, they're gonna get pennies on the dollar. So where they're going at quarterback if Brock Purdy struggles, talent wise, we know that Sam Darnold probably has the most quarterback from a pocket position than anybody on the roster. So I think that the national media doesn't really, and we understand what the national media does. It doesn't. Stories have to sell. Stories have to push ratings. But I just think that it's more there with the 49ers. The team that I'm intrigued with the most is what's going on with New England. I think there are some whispers with the coach. I think the coach wants to continue coaching. I think the coach is a grunt, a savant of coaching. I think that the coach has basically. I think it's time for him to move on from New England.
Well, I don't think if he moves on, he's not. It would be into retirement.
Yeah, I do think Bill O'Brien is going to help him out a lot. I think Bill O'Brien, from a coordinator standpoint, I think a lot of people don't realize that Bill O'Brien, from a coordinator standpoint, got 4 different quarterbacks in the playoffs in Houston, which is interesting. But I'm intrigued, and I'm intrigued with also Dwayne is that every year it's always those surprise teams, and good and bad. Last year, one of the feel good stories was Seattle. I know me and you had an affinity for the Dolphins. That really hasn't come to fruition. It's amazing how most people will say the Dolphins have one of the best wide receiver combos, but if you really look at Waddle's numbers, he hasn't really done anything yet. He makes big plays, but he hasn't done anything yet. So I'm intrigued with everybody saying the NFC got 3 teams. I think that is a very, very overblown statement. I think Detroit's going to make a big run. I think the Saints are going to be right there tough. Carolina, depending on how quick that Frank Reich can get that team together, I think that it's going to be interesting what happens in the NFC. I think the AFC is scary. I think that AFC North is a pick'em because I think Deshaun Watson is going to have a big year. So what are we saying? All 4 teams going to go to the playoffs in the NFC North? That's almost impossible. And then you got the AFC West, who is going to be crazy. You don't know what the heck is going out there with the AFC West, and Sean Payton is in that tough division. So then you got the AFC East. Yeah, people may say that New England may be last in the division, but we're talking about from a game-by-game view, New England will compete with anybody on any given Sunday. So,
Yeah.
very interested.
There's a lot of things going on. Like, for me, I think the bloom is off the rose for Sean McVay. It looked like he tried to come up with an escape plan, and they kept him in there. So he was everybody's wonderkin, and they went all in, and they did win that Super Bowl. But what is he going to do this year with the Rams? Is he as good a coach as they wanted to crown him, man? They wanted to crown him very early. Is he an all-time great coach? Again, looked like last year he was looking for the escape hatch, for the quick exit. So I think the bloom is off the rose with him, man. So we'll see what happens with the Rams. The NFC, yeah, they're talking about three teams: the Eagles, the 49ers, and the Cowboys. I think the Saints are going to be decent. You know, off of Hard Knocks, I like what Dan Campbell did with the Lions, but it's a lot of changes with the Lions. They lost a lot of they flipped that roster, man. They lost a lot of players that were pretty good. They had the guy that had the most rushing touchdowns in the league last year, and they let him walk. He's in New Orleans now. So we're going to see what's going to happen. There's always one team that sneaks up and surprises everyone. If I had to pick one in the NFC, I think the Saints are going to be something to deal with this year with Derek Carr at quarterback. And I don't know why, man. There's somebody laying in wait in the AFC, man. I like the Jaguars, man.
I'm gonna tell you.
I like Jacksonville. I like them a lot.
What they've done with their roster, Dwayne, with the money they spent, basically, and me and you will admit, with those receivers getting Calvin Ridley, it could be interesting. Just keep that quarterback upright, and they're going to be a very, very tough team. One of the teams in the NFC that I think that may take a big step, because what they're going to do is speed the game up and basically play what we would say old school football, is Atlanta. With the way that they're going to be able to run the ball. I was really upset because the other day when I found out about Jeff Okudah, man, and you just think about all the talent that this kid had, going to Detroit, not fanning out, and then getting traded, and then getting hurt in Atlanta in the preseason. But I'm like you. We didn't do our preseason predictions yet, but I'm going to name a team in the AFC that I like the way their roster is. I like everything about this organization now, but I got a strange feeling they're going to take the biggest step back, and it's the Bengals. And the reason why is because I think this injury for the quarterback is bigger than what they want to talk about. I think that one of the things that he said about the salary cap and players taking less money, it's a good thing that he said that. It's what you want to see, but it's not what billionaires don't give you less. The billionaires want what they want. They don't give up money. So millionaires shouldn't give up money when you're negotiating with billionaires and let them figure it out. So I just think, I like what they did with their line. I love getting Zeus's son, Orlando Brown. I think they're going to have a better line, but I just worry about the Bengals and their injury to the quarterback. I really, really do, Dwayne. But this is their year because they got to pay those receivers coming up. And if they don't win it this year, them and the Bills, literally, I could say, have more pressure on them than any other teams. But we know the team in Dallas.
I think the Cowboys, because I think that window is closing. That window is closing quick. Dak Prescott's the longest tenured quarterback in the NFL right now as far as starting quarterback for a team. And his window's closing. He just turned 30. A lot of people don't win their first Super Bowl after 30. That's just statistically, that's just what it is. So I think his window's closing for sure. I tell you, there's one player that frustrates me, I think, more than any player in the history of football. And I know that's a big statement, but I really feel it. He flashed on the scene as a true freshman at South Carolina, Jadeveon Clowney, and you just thought he was going to be the next big thing, man. And it just seems he's never on the field. It just seems like he's never available. And the crazy thing about it is it's not injury. And I'm not one of these that want to question players, their love of the game, or their heart's in it. But for as talented that he is, for it to now be August 6th, and he's still not signed.
How old is Clowney?
Something's there.
He's got to be.
Give me a second. I'll look it up.
He's got to be 30. I second that, and it's really when you look at players, Dwayne, and it's always been this way with the league and certain sports
Mhm.
where a guy is immensely talented, and it's just like you never want to question nobody, but it was more there than they produced, and it's sad because pure pass rusher, dominant. Javavian Clowney might have had all the tools coming out. Like literally even in college, like everything that you could want out of a defensive end, Clowney had. Great against the run, great at the point of attack, great getting to the quarterback. And it's like he you don't want to say he lost focus, but I think the business of the NFL kind of caught up with him and the organizations. And it's like, it's really sad that he went to Cleveland for 2 years and now you don't know where he's at and he's a free agent.
30 years old.
And even Dwayne, look at he just got signed, but even Joko. Like you see these guys who are super talented at a position. And I don't know if it's the negotiation, is that you can get to the quarterback, which is a special skill set. After quarterback, left tackle, probably receiver, defensive end is there. And for some reason, these guys, it's a bunch of guys who cannot get long-term deals and just stay with an organization and be set. We even see that with Quinn.
Yeah.
He went to the Eagles. He was at Chicago. He was at Dallas. Went to Chicago. Parlayed that to getting traded to the Eagles.
Yeah, but it's a little bit different because.
And he's older. He's older than everybody. I think he's 36.
Well, not even that. When Robert Quinn shows up, he shows up to play. He shows up to play. Clowney, like I said, had an amazing freshman year, and then the rule: you can't come into the NFL unless until you're 3 years removed from high school. So he basically coasted the last 2 years at South Carolina because he didn't want to get injured. Came on, went to the Texans, played well, man. He's like a franchise type of defensive player, man. And for him to be on 4 teams already, and this will be his 15th, and no one's touching a 30-year-old freak of nature, it's just weird, man.
It's weird. It's weird and it's strange
Potential
to know that Houston had him and J.J. Watt at the same time. Like what could have been? Like we always hear, and we know that the great Jack Lambert was cut, and then, but we hear about these when we were kids, this historical defense, the Steel Curtain, and we seen it with the Packers. The Ravens, the Bears, the Buccaneers, Legion of Boom. These historic defenses.
Yeah, I said it. Doomsday.
These historic defenses, they form organically, but you need a couple things to happen, like little signings of free agents or little as they say, picking up somebody's scrap. But it's like Clowney. Like even to the point, Dwayne, with Cleveland, you got Myles Garrett on the other side. Not saying that you should not get paid what you're worth, dude, but understand, okay, I'll take $5 million. I think I'm a $10 million player. I'll take $5 million with a whole bunch of incentives just to be that guy's running mate. Dwayne, me and you grew up in the Northeast. Most people don't realize that Lawrence Taylor played on the defense with a guy that was a Hall of Famer, Harry Carsons.
Yep.
But the other side with Gary Reasons and Carl Banks, they were a problem.
Then you had Big Jim Burt up front.
Yes, they were a problem. And it's like, for some reason...
Leonard Marshall. Listen,
yes.
We're football fans. Even though we Cowboy fans, we know. I remember the Giants had number 26, Rob Carpenter, in the backfield, and Scott Bruner, number 12, at quarterback. We football junkies, man. So my thing is, and you speak of the Giants, right? And you speak of defenses, and you got to give them credit for that team that beat the undefeated Tom Brady and the Patriots. They had that NASCAR package where they had Tuck
Hasn't been
look,
duplicated. So
and
many teams are trying to duplicate it.
yeah,
You haven't
you
been
had
able to
Tuck,
duplicate it.
you had OC, you had Strahan, you had Kiwanuka. Like them boys got after it on that Giants defensive front. You know, there was no
One thing,
fluke
one
beating the
thing I say
Patriots.
about one thing I say about that Giant defensive front, Dwayne, and it's only one team I've seen. They haven't duplicated what they do from a pass rushing standpoint, but they duplicate their style of play in the front seven. Is being able to or not have to blitz. And it's a major factor. The 49ers, I think, does it best after them. But what that Giant team did and why that NASCAR package was so special was you had to double someone. And they literally said, whoever you don't double, our other guys are going to beat their guys one-on-one and be
And I'm
effective.
sorry, I didn't even mention the Hall of Famer Strahan.
Yeah, and it's almost crazy because why so many players aren't willing to sacrifice for the greater good of the team. You're going to get paid. You're going to parlay into winners in the NFL. For some reason, I don't think people understand that when you win in the NFL or you become part of a winning franchise, it's so many opportunities after you leave the game. So many in that particular city, you basically get carte blanche. I mean, you and me, like I said earlier, we're in close proximity to Philadelphia. I think when it's all said and done, people may not realize it. A career backup who started partially his NFL career has a statue in Philadelphia. I don't think people get the significance. Nick Foles has a statue because he's a winner. He won. And so I say that to say for these players, man, and anybody who watches this broadcast that's got young kids that play and younger men that play, realize sometimes that sacrificing for the team pays off in the long run.
Yeah, it's ironic that you mentioned Nick Foles because I got a question for you. Will Carson Wentz ever start another game in the NFL?
Well, Dwayne, I don't think he is as bad as he's looked the last few years. And I don't know if he's that good of what he did for the Eagles those first 12 games and got them that home field advantage before he got that knee injury. I'll say this, that I don't think that he'll start again, but you never know in the NFL. The NFL quarterback position is so hard to evaluate and understanding, okay, you see this great quarterback and he's got all the skills, but is it system? The player fan, the fan in me who loves the players will say, no, it's not system. I have to defer to Chris Carter, the Hall of Famer. He said the NFL is the most system-driven league than any other league. So I say that to say that given the right system, given the right circumstances and everything aligning, quarterback come in there and just take off and pick up on the offense and protections and being able, as they say, being able to see it and process it quick, you just never know. Because Dwayne, I never thought, like most people, excuse me for cutting you off, most people will say last year, Jones from the Giants had this great year and he did this and he did that. And, the Giants got to the playoffs and Dable did a job on him. He threw 15 touchdowns.
15 touchdowns. But the reason I think Wentz has a chance is because when you see what Geno Smith did. So I think it's about opportunity and I think it's about being in the right place. I'm here. There are some great receiving cores in this NFL. The one I'm most excited to see in the 2023 season, Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, Jackson Smith-Njigba. That is going to be a special, I'm calling it right now, They are going to be the best trio in 2023 with Geno Smith at quarterback.
I'm gonna say something that may surprise you. We didn't do our predictions on the season, but I will say this: when you look at rosters and you look at balance, you look at from top to bottom, you look at what Seattle has done with getting Wagner back. It would not surprise me, and I know it may seem crazy. It would not surprise me if Seattle won 13-3, because when you look at their roster with those three receivers, Torrey Lockett, big catches his whole career. Then you look at Metcalf being a nightmare, and then you look at Smith. Then you look at their running backs. They got two bookend tackles now. Geno Smith, literally, from a coaching standpoint, Geno Smith has it made. Just make the reads, make the game easy, don't make it hard. Last year when they lost to the 49ers in the playoffs, they had a couple turnovers that just changed the complexity of the game. The defensive side of the ball loaded. If they can get not anything out of Jamal Adams, a healthy Jamal Adams for 16 games, he's a difference maker. He's somebody that got a nose for the ball. He's not great in coverage, but if the ball, he's going to be around where the ball is caught or ran to. So,
listen, Sauce Gardner had a hell of a rookie season, and the defensive rookie of the year was well deserved. But Woolen didn't suffer any fools, and now they adding Devon Witherspoon, a top 5 draft pick, to that mix at the other corner. I'm telling you now, they keep talking about 3 teams in the NFC. Watch Seattle. Now they're a little banged up. Kenneth Walker III is banged up. A kid that I love, Zach Carbonet, who started at Michigan and then went to UCLA. Big, bruising, physical back, strong running game. He's a little banged up in camp. If those 2 young running backs get it together, you had 2 rookies start that offensive tackle for them last year. That counted themselves very well. They got the big fella from Michigan that's joining that offensive line. And he could play either center or he could play interior guard. They got Pete Carroll at coach, man. Watch out for those Seahawks, man.
It's three guys. It's 3 GMs in the last 4 years. And one of them is undecided because next year is going to be the year that he really can do something. I'm going to say that Mayhew is my honorable mention guy. Mayhew is my honorable mention guy in Detroit. But it's 3 GMs in the NFL.
Detroit.
Oh, excuse me. I always say, what's the GM of Detroit? I always forget him and Mayhew mixed up.
His name is Brandon Williams, I believe.
Yeah. He came from the Rams, right?
Came from the Rams with me.
Yeah. So, excuse me for that, you guys. But it's 3 GMs that I'm going to say. And one of them, depending on next year's draft, I'm going to give him, he might get the green light as one of the best GMs. Chris Greer, what he's done the last 4 years with that Miami roster, the reason why they could go out and get players like James Ramsey is because they have assets. They have what you call assets without spending money. And I'm going to tell you guys that love football, roster building, and I'm going to keep saying it, and I said it during our draft show, John Snyder put a master class on how to be a GM in the last 3 years with what he did with Russell Wilson and the assets. And I don't know his name. Holmes, yeah. HBCU grad. Went to A&T, right?
Yeah, Brad
Holmes. Yeah, Brad Holmes. And I'm going to name the other GM. I can't remember his name offhand. But if you get a chance, you could Google their war room. That young GM in Arizona, he literally was doing what you see on the show Draft Day with Kevin Costner. He's building a roster. And we know that the Cardinals may be the worst team in the league coming into the season. And however, what you look at what they have going forward, the Cardinals.
Steve Kahn?
Yeah, no, he's not there no more. Steve Kahn's got fired, right? They got a new GM. Yeah, they got rid of Steve Keim and Kingsbury.
Okay.
Um, I believe that the GM for Arizona in the next few years is going to be. He's got assets coming up, folks. So you know,
They got a chance to have the top 2 picks in the draft next year.
one of the things that me and Dwayne do is
Oh, you talking about Monty?
outside of we
Monty
rooting for.
Osmond fourth.
Okay,
Monty Osmond fourth.
outside of Dwayne and myself rooting for the team that we both like, you love organization and you love roster building. So I'm intrigued that Seattle is in phase 2. Miami would be phase 3. The only thing that could prevent Miami is the injury to the quarterback from them making the next step. Seattle, I'm gonna just say this, and I know a lot of people do not like Geno Smith. One thing I will say, and one thing, like Dwayne said just a minute ago about them, when you have a quarterback who is lock and step with the philosophy of the coach and understands his place in the league, anything could happen. Geno Smith is lock and step with Pete Carroll. Watch out.
And Pete could have drafted one of these quarterbacks early, and he chose not to. You know, he went with the defensive back. So, we're gonna see. He's gonna get.
And all said and done, Seattle's 2022 draft may go down as the greatest draft for any one team ever. Now we know what was the draft. I think the Steelers drafted like 6 Hall of Fame players. Yeah.
I'm intrigued to see what Nick Caserio is going to do in Houston. I mean, he's punted on a couple of seasons with a couple of coaches. You know, they had Lovie Smith, and then they had Cully, and now they got an original Texan coming back home, and D'Amico Ryans, and they gave him who I think was the best rookie defender in the draft, and Will Anderson Jr. He also has C.J. Stroud, and they're through the Deshaun Watson situation. So I'm going to be very intrigued to see what Houston looks like. They brought in an offensive coordinator that was with Shanahan in San Francisco. They have a damn good running back already. They got Tunsil, and they got a decent offensive line. You know, D'Amico Ryan's going to have his imprint all over that defense. So I'm intrigued by the Houston Texans this year, and to see if they take a step forward this season.
One of the things that I think that the Texans is doing is literally, like you said, the last 2 seasons. I just think that they punted on the season, but they didn't establish a foundation. And I think that D'Amico Ryans is going to establish a foundation. I think with Watson and Mr. McNair dying, it affected their franchise in so many ways. It basically set them back on what they were trying to do. And now I think with D'Amico Ryans, with so much talent they have quietly, and the way they spent their money, free agents, they got a lot of lunch pail guys in free agency, which is interesting. I would like to see them bring J.J. Watt into the fold, as far as in the organization. I think they could tap into something.
He done the TV, so now he's gonna be on TV.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting going forward, and it's just like, you know, one of the things about the NFL preseason and the NFL in general is that in the preseason every team has a shot. Every team, we can honestly say right now, barring the Cardinals, because I think the Cardinals are one team that is lobbying for the kid from USC.
Mm-hmm.
Every team in the NFL, based off of what their roster has and a foundation, they get off to a 5-0 start, you're going to be like, whoa. Because everybody has something there. And it's a matter of tapping into what's there and being able to really just parlay that into having, as they say, a special season.
Yeah, we talked about, you know, living in the New York area, growing up as fans. Somebody that was prevalent for both the Giants as a player and the Jets as a coach with Bill Parcells. was Maurice Carthon, and I'm really excited for his son Rand Carthon, who's now the new general manager of the Tennessee Titans. So I'm interested to see how he molds this team. You know, do they move on from Derrick Henry eventually? Um, they did draft Will Levis, who I'm gonna go on record again as I just don't think he's gonna be a good pro quarterback. I just don't. I didn't think Zach Wilson would be. I said that publicly. People told me I was crazy. Playing football is more than what you do when you got a t-shirt on and some shorts. You got to put that helmet. You got to put those shoulder pads on. Um, and I know we're getting up on the hour. We usually don't like to go past it. I think the team that had the biggest offseason and had the biggest win, and by default is going to have the brightest future, is the Washington Commanders. And that's getting rid of finally being rid of Daniel Snyder, having the new ownership group. The DMV has been re-energized. I truly believe they will be changing this name again after the season, just to get away from the Daniel Snyder era. And I think the needle is going to be pointing up for Washington now that they have Josh Harris, Magic Johnson, got a couple of billionaires from the DMV, and I think they've had the biggest offseason because they don't have to deal with Daniel Snyder.
One thing, Dwayne, and the only thing that has been cavalier, and I know that the organization just got sold, and for those of us that don't like that franchise, we're pissed that Daniel Snyder don't own it anymore. But one thing I always thought was interesting, definitely in the last 3 years, and me and you both have been big fans of Ron Rivera, is I just don't understand why they're dragging their feet with big fish hunting when it comes to quarterback. I just don't understand because the, what their roster says, if they get a quarterback who is adequate, they're good.
Well, they thought they had it. They thought they had it when they drafted Carson Wentz. I mean, when they traded for Carson Wentz after he left the Eagles, they thought they had it. They were going to put it all in his hands. Unfortunately, God rest his soul. Dwayne Haskins didn't turn out to be what they thought he was going to be. He thought they thought he was their franchise quarterback of the future. Unfortunately, it didn't work out in Washington. And then we know the story of what happened to him. A Jersey kid that wound up in the DMV and then went to Ohio State, had a good career at Ohio State. Rest in peace to him, you know. So it's such a crapshoot, man. The Jets thought they had it with Sam Darnold. Jets thought they had it with Zach Wilson. You know, the Colts, when they got Carson Wentz, you know, so many people have wanted to turn the keys over to Carson Wentz, and he just hasn't gotten it done. Um, Washington, when's the last time they had that true quarterback? They had Kirk Cousins. They let him go. They drafted Robert Griffin III. They thought he was the franchise quarterback. So they've been in a lot of bad luck as far as the quarterback position is concerned, man. They could make
Dwayne,
a
we
break.
we we haven't seen one thing. We haven't seen this particular franchise in over 30 years be bad. Are we about to enter the zone where the Green Bay Packers are bad for the
I don't.
first time since we were kids?
There's two teams that I don't think will be bad. Um, I think Jordan Love will be serviceable. I think the Packers will have a good defense around them, especially if Rashawn Gary comes back healthy. Um, they got good running backs. They got decent young receivers. Even though they lost Lazard, he came to the Jets. Um, Bad being relative, I don't know how good that NFC North is. So I think they're going to compete with Chicago. I think they're going to compete with Minnesota. So I think they're going to be all right where they are. And somebody the other day asked me, is this the year that Mike Tomlin has a below 500 record? No. It's not. It's not. This man's been at it so long,
Just
and he's never
tell
had
him
a
to go to the
losing record.
casino and bet on it.
He's never had a losing record. I don't think he ever will. And I think he already has his gold jacket, that being Mike Tomlin. I don't think he gets the credit that he deserves for the head coach that he is. So I think the Packers will be all right. I mean, hey, man, for 30 years, you looked at Green Bay and you saw 4 and you saw 12. And they're two of the greatest to ever do it. 4 is already in the Hall. 12 will be in the Hall. So now we're going to see how good Mike LaFleur is. And not Mike LaFleur. His brother's Mike LaFleur. But we'll see what Matt LaFleur got. And we'll see, man. It's interesting. Shout out to the running backs, man. Shout out to Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, Nick Chubb, Austin Eckler, Tony Pollard, all the starting running backs in this league. Shout out to you. I think you're undervalued. I think it's a crime the way that running backs are paid. And hopefully something can be done about that. But I love the running back. It's my second favorite position to watch on the field. Everybody knows I love the corners. But running back is my second favorite position. And, man, give our running back some love in 2023. Love on them running backs, man.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting year. We see the Chris Olaves, the Jackson Ajova Smith, the CeeDee Lamb. We see a bunch of receivers about to take off. I think Devontae Adams. It may be some whispers going into the season or during the season that he may get traded. I just see a bunch of, as they say in the NFL, you never know what to expect. I can see some weird, strange things happen with certain teams. One thing I noticed in the last few off seasons and going into this season and probably next year is rosters change quickly, and I'm intrigued on what's going to happen. The New York, I think the pressure of the Jets and the Giants to win in New York has never been higher. I think that the Giant fans are optimistic, but really they don't understand the quarterback. I think the Giant fans who understand, they don't really want to put much stock in the quarterback. The one thing the Giants, Dable didn't do last year is allow the team to self-destruct. One of the things with the Giants is the Giants are a matchup. They just cannot match up against the Eagles. The Eagles just overwhelm them, which is tough when you play a division rival, is because one of the things that you want to do from a football standpoint is win your division every year. That's the first goal, and you want to compete. Is that you never want to be able to say that a team just got your number. And I noticed the last few years the Eagles they don't beat the Giants. They manhandle the Giants. Mm-hmm. The Eagles usually split with the Cowboys, or sometimes they may lose 2 games with the Cowboys, but they're a good team. They match up well against the Cowboys. The Eagles struggle against Washington. Cowboys struggle against Washington, go back and forth against the Eagles. Cowboys very rarely, right lately, got the Giants number. So I think, speaking of the Giants and then the pressure of the Jets having Aaron Rodgers, I think no team is under more pressure than the Jets, because if they, being on Hard Knocks, being that they got the quarterback, being that they have this young, ready-to-win roster, Garrett Wilson.
Rookie of the year, defensive rookie of the year.
Yes, and it's so scary because the game's got to get played. We could project on what they could be and what they're going to be. At the end of the day, they're not going to be. I'll just say this. They're not going to be what people expect them to be. That does not mean that they can't win. That does not mean that they won't win the Super Bowl. But they're not going. Something is going to happen with a player on their team or players on their team that's going to surprise or disappoint. That it just.
Happens
For
every year, man.
it happens every year in every sport. And if you notice one thing
Look at
about
me.
football,
I'm a Mets fan. Look how they all went out, and now look at us. You know,
Cowboy fan, anybody that's a Cowboy fan, we know the story. It was third down. North Turner called the play. He called the play, and Michael Irvin literally told Alvin Harper, "Yo, I'm going over there," because Michael Irvin swore the play was going to be to him, and it was for him. However, Troy's job as a quarterback was, if the safety is leaning over, you got backside coverage. Go to the backside. And the play was for Alvin Harper. And that play goes down as one of the biggest plays that changed that 90s Cowboys team. So I just used that as an example. Like, football is a strange
it's fluid.
thing. And
I will say this, you know, I know we're gonna do a prediction show, but I'm making two predictions right now. Defensive Rookie of the Year will be Will Anderson of the Houston Texans. His game is suited for pro football, man. He's a monster. Houston got a good one with him. And offense, it hurts my heart. I'm Big Blue till I leave here. But I'm telling you guys right now, the best offensive rookie in this past draft is no other than JSN, Jackson Smith-Njigba, and watch what he does in Seattle. Watch what that kid does in Seattle. So Jackson Smith-Njigba and Will Anderson will be your offensive and defensive rookies of the year for the 2023 season.
Before we close out, I just want to say that comeback player of the year, and the player that I'm most uncomfortable that he's playing football again. I'm very uncomfortable with it. I will never be able to watch the Buffalo Bills this year and be comfortable. I am very uncomfortable with Damar Hamlin playing football.
Well, listen, I got to be consistent. Every time I saw Alex Smith suit up, my friend here will tell you I was nervous, couldn't watch those games, and it'll be very hard for me to watch Buffalo on defense if Damar Hamlin's out there. Happy that he's doing what he wants to do. He looks happy that he's back in camp. But something in me is going to be hard to watch him play football. Because we got to remember, man, it truly is bigger than football. And, you know, this show, when it airs, hopefully we'll get some good comments in there. So if you're watching, I want to see in the comments what you think is the biggest story going into the season. Is it the Jets? Hey man, Robert Saleh, what'd he say? If they ain't hating, you ain't popping. Is that what he said?
Yeah.
Some catchy thing like that. Well, the bullseye's on you, Mr. Saleh. It's on you.
With that, you guys, appreciate you guys. Until next time, as Dwayne always says, faith, family, football. With that, stay up.